Class 156 on the Golden Doves. Welcome to Torah Andalus. We're studying Golden Doves and Silver Dots, page 87. The book is out of print. We're going to be republishing it hopefully soon. But anyway, welcome to Torah Andalus again. For those of you who are new to the channel, this is not for quick inspiration. This is not for quick, thoughts that you can take with you. This is for deep learning. This is for serious people who have an intellectual propensity and really want to go deeply into things, right? So we were discussing the development of the oral law, and now originally the oral law didn't have a fixed composition. And then Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Meir and Rabbeinu HaKadosh, eventually he's the one who concluded it, Rabbeinu HaKadosh, they created this composition, right, a fixed formula, which was the summary of the Torah Shebe'al Peh, and that was the Mishnayot, of course, right? So we're studying about that. So we're studying about the new textual concepts that came about as a result of this project, right? It was a multi-generational project to take the entire Torah Shebe'al Peh and transform it into a fixed composition, right? So intimately connected with the idea of formulating the oral tradition as are the concepts of halakha, plural halachot, Aramaic hilcheta, right? So on the one hand, you have the concept of halakha. What does the word halakha mean? And haggadah, plural haggadot or agada or agadot. So, and then you have agadot, right? So there's a particular, I don't want to say a mistake, but there's something lacking in the conventional attitude towards these two words. What does the word halakha mean? What does the word agadah mean? Formally, halakha designates the traditions that had received precise and authoritative formulations, whereas haggadah designates the teachings that were not the object of authoritative formulation. I really think this is one of my father's revolutionary ideas, or hiddushim. Because everybody says halakha is law, haggadot are stories, but that's just not true, as we'll see. I mean, it's not true, it's not adequate. So what my father says is that halachot are those traditions that were formulated as a fixed composition, right? As a fixed text. And agadot are those traditions for which there was no fixed text, but which you can use your own words to express the idea that you want to express. Therefore, there was not much concern with the actual text of the Haggadah. That's why people were not concerned. What is the actual text of this Haggadah? Right? For instance, it has been noted that Nisim Gaon did not consider it necessary to transmit the Haggadot according to the Talmudic text. Interesting. Why not? Of course, in Mishnah, you would be precise as to every single letter, right? Every word, you would be precise in the way you formulate it, in the way you express it, in the way you transmit it. But instead of Nisim Gaon, when he would transmit Haggadot, he would transmit it in his own words. Why? Because Haggadot represent concepts, right? There was no fixed official text of the Haggadot. Thus, more variations are found in the Haggadah than in Halakha, and that's why you have many variations of say. You can have the same Haggadah expressed in many different ways, because the expression is besides the point. Right. Halakha requires perfect memorization in oral transmission, and that's why people would study the halachot be'al peh. They wouldn't study the haggadot be'al peh. While reciting a tradition in the name of another person, it was required for psychological effect to picture that person standing before him. Right? So the Yerushalmi and Shekalim says that when you recite a halakha, you would think of the person who taught you that halakha, because he had to say it by heart. Now you have to say it by heart. So for the full psychological effect, you would picture that person teaching you that halakha. For this reason, in bidding farewell to a friend, one should transmit to him a halakha in order to be remembered. Now you know why. It says if you're going to say goodbye to somebody, why should you say goodbye from the words of halakha? Since people would study the halachot be'al peh, and since when they would recite the halachot, they would remember the person who taught them the halakha, so that would be a nice way of remembering the person who you're saying goodbye to. Beautiful chidush. All right. Although keri'ah, tearing one's garment in mourning for a friend, is required only for those present at the burial or death, right? So if a person is present during the time of death, or at a burial. So the real halakha was b'shat kimum, at the time of death or during the burial. The halakha was that anybody present would have to do kiriyah, even though we don't follow that today. I mean, we don't follow that today. The practice is not in accordance with the law, right? That was the original law, right? Rabbis always citing their colleagues shemata lesson must practice kiriyah upon hearing of a colleague's death, just as if they were present. But if you study the halakha from somebody, and then you hear that that person passed away, you have to do kiriyah. Why? Because when you recite that halakha, you always remember his presence. And since you remember his presence, it's as if although you're present, and therefore you have to make kiriyah. Very sharp point. In this narrow technical sense, halakha is a late concept, and one that acquired significance with the diminishing of Jewish authority. So the whole idea of halakha, what is the halakha? Well, in the past, if you want to know the law in a particular circumstance, you would go to the Bet Din, and the Bet Din would tell you the law. But now we have the concept of halakha, which is an official composition of words expressing the law, and you therefore no longer need to go to the Bet Din, because now you have the halakha. So the halakha came as the Batedinim. Batedin were on the wane with the Roman destruction of Judea. The rabbinic saying, with the destruction of the temple, God has nothing in this world except for the four corners of halakha. That's Masachet Berachot. That says, "Mishnechela bet hamikdash en lo leHakadosh Baruch Hu be'olamo ela dalet amot shel halakha." Why? Because once the Bet HaMikdash was destroyed and the Jewish authority was removed and the political institutions were no more, but you still had the halachot, and the halachot have their own authoritative value, right? The rabbinic saying with we read that, underlies this point. The 4 cubits, why 4 cubits? Why 4 amot? Refers to the minimum space that a student needs to sit undisturbed and memorize a formulated text. The most authoritative formulation of halakha is the Mishnah. Of course, the Mishnah is the most authoritative formulation of the halakha, because that Rav Kadosh edited it, and it was accepted by the entire Bet Din of the Jewish people. Some peculiarities of the Mishnah become intelligible in light of this function. The function being that you have a specific formulation of words called a composition. It's very specific. These are the words. You can't just be sloppy with the words you say, right? So we're going to see some peculiarities about the Mishnah. This view is discussed in this first section. So in the first section, which is called Halakha Nagadah, we're going to be discussing that. The last 2 sections examine the distinction between written and oral law, and that will be for the next class.